Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Grunsky, can I get you to lead the flag salute, please? Thank you. Roll call, please.
All right, we'll begin the roll call. Commissioner Hamilton,
Present.
Commissioner Grunsky, Commissioner Midgley, Commissioner Rustaller,
Present.
Commissioner Sangha.
Here.
Okay, we have minutes from February 18th, March 4th, March 18th, 15th. Any discussion, or I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Commissioner Midgley, Commissioner Grunsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Rustaller,
Yes.
Commissioner Sangha,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. Action on request for any continuance or withdrawals this evening? None? This time, the public is welcome to address the Planning Commission on items of interest to the public that are not listed on the agenda. Comments to the Commission are limited to a maximum of 5 minutes or 250 words. Comments provided via email.
Is there anyone online who wishes to speak regarding items not on the agenda?
Okay, seeing none, we will move to action item number 1, variance number PA 210006, Ray Investments Company.
Thank you, Chair. Jennifer Jolly, Deputy Director of Planning. Tonight we have Megan Aguirre. She's a senior planner, and she will be presenting the variance application.
Thank you.
Second. You're just waiting for the PowerPoint to load. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This project is a variance application to vary the minimum parcel size in the Agriculture Urban Reserve with a 20-acre minimum zone from 20 acres to 2 acres. If the variance application before you tonight is approved, the applicant would submit for a major subdivision application for the underlying project to create a 4-parcel subdivision. The project site is located on the northwest corner of South Mitchell Road and East Southland Road within the urban community and sphere of influence of the city of Manteca. The project has a general plan designation of RL, which is low density residential, and a zoning designation of AU20, Agriculture Urban Reserve, with a 20-acre minimum. Surrounding land uses include agricultural properties with scattered residences to the north, east, west, and south of the subject parcel. To the south, there are also residential properties within the city of Manteca. The subject property currently contains a single-family residence and an agricultural building. This is a copy of the site plan submitted by the applicant. If the variance application is approved, the applicant is proposing to subdivide the 8.87 acre parcel into 4 parcels with the minimum parcel size of 2 acres each, as depicted on this site plan. The proposed subdivision would separate the existing single-family residence from the existing agricultural building, which was originally constructed as a farm headquarters facility. The subject parcel was created through a series of applications which also involved property to the east of the site, and include a division of land, merger, and variance with an underlying minor subdivision. These will be depicted and described in further detail on the following slides. So we're talking about this property just to the east. In 1973, the Planning Commission approved division of land number DL 73161 to subdivide an existing 20-acre parcel into 4 parcels as depicted. 2 subsequent applications were submitted to create smaller parcels that would have been less than 2 acres in size with all or a portion of this same area, one of which was denied and the other withdrawn due to concerns about potential impacts to agricultural land and public services. The 2 parcels created on the east side of Mitchell Road were later adjusted to increase the size of the northern piece and decrease the size of the southern piece, as depicted with the dashed line that you see there. In 1989, the Community Development Department approved merger number ME 883 to merge the 2 parcels on the west side of Mitchell Road that were originally created in 1973. The purpose of the merger was to permit the construction of an agricultural headquarters, which required a minimum of 7.5 acres at that time. The building was constructed and remains on site. The merged parcel is the subject parcel for the current variance application. In 2000, the Planning Commission approved variance number VR003 to permit a subdivision of a portion of the original subdivision from 1973 into 3 parcels with a minimum of 2 acres each. The Community Development Department approved minor subdivision number MS0114 for the underlying project. This is the property east of the subject parcel and subdivided by the same applicant, Tony Remus. Because the same applicant is involved in the current project, the underlying subdivision would be a major subdivision rather than a minor subdivision and would require a future public hearing at the Planning Commission. The current general plan designation is low-density residential. The zoning is agriculture urban reserve with a 20-acre minimum, and the property is located within the City of Manteca's sphere of influence. Parcels zoned AU20 are intended to be retained in agriculture until urban development can occur at the appropriate time with the provision of services and utilities. There are no public services available to the site at this time, and further subdividing the parcel without services is inconsistent with the policies of the general plan and the intent of the AU20 zoning. Additionally, the general plan density for the low-density residential general plan designation is 2 to 6 dwelling units per acre with the corresponding maximum parcel size of half an acre. The proposed creation of 4 approximately 2-acre parcels would result in parcels that do not meet this density if the parcel were to be rezoned to the corresponding low-density residential zone. Therefore, approval of the subject variance application and underlying major subdivision application would be inconsistent with both the general plan density and the current 20-acre zone minimum. In order to approve a variance application, the Planning Commission is required to make 3 findings in the affirmative. The Community Development Department was able to make finding number 3, but findings numbers 1 and 2 cannot be made in the affirmative. Finding number 1 states that there are special circumstances and the strict application of the regulation deprives the property of privileges enjoyed by other area properties with the same zoning. This parcel is located within a large area that is zoned AU20, and there are at least 20 parcels that are 20 acres or greater in size within 1 mile. Parcels below this 20-acre minimum were subdivided when the zoning had a lower minimum acreage requirement in the past, with the exception of the parcels directly east that were discussed earlier in the presentation. As agriculturally zoned property, agricultural mitigation is required to mitigate for the loss of such agricultural land when there is a change in the permitted land use from an agricultural to a non-agricultural land use, such as residential. Approving this variance to further subdivide the subject property into smaller parcels that would not be considered agriculturally viable and would contain future residences would constitute circumventing the requirement to mitigate for the loss of agricultural land, since no zone reclassification to a zone permitting smaller parcels would be required. This would further fragment agricultural land without ensuring mitigation. Therefore, finding number 1 cannot be made in the affirmative as there are no special circumstances. Finding number 2 states that the granting of the variance will not constitute a grant of special privileges inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity and zone in which the property is situated. This finding cannot be made because approval of the variance would constitute a grant of special privileges by allowing the subject parcel to be further subdivided below the 20-acre minimum. The property is located within the urban community of Manteca, and the county's general plan requires public services such as water, sewer, and storm drainage to rezone the parcel to a zone that permits smaller parcel sizes. These services are not currently available to the site, and subdivisions below 20 acres are not permitted under the current AU20 zoning. Therefore, further subdividing the subject parcel would constitute a grant of special privileges. Thank you. This concludes staff's presentation.
Questions from commissioners? Staff recommendation?
Thank you. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission deny variance number PA 216 based on the inability to make all of the required findings in the affirmative.
Thank you. We'll open up the public hearing from the representative. Project, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission, and good evening. Mike Hakem, 3414 Brookside Road in Stockton. I'm here tonight to represent the applicant, Tony Ramos. Tony is here with me tonight with her husband, Andrew Sifos, and our engineer, Sean Samaniego. As you know from the staff report, the application before you is for a variance. And by way of just brief personal background, I'll get between 2 and 3 calls per year to do variances. Based on the number of years I've been appearing before the commission, somehow people think if they call me and make a strong pitch and offer to pay more fees that I'll take a variance. I invariably reject those. As this commission knows, I don't think I've brought one before you in quite some time. I only bring a variance when I believe I can make the findings and I can represent to you that I think you can make the findings, which I think we're presenting before you tonight. As you know from the staff report, the general plan is low-density residential, and the zone is AU20, which is a residential holding zone. Tony and Andrew have lived across the street from the subject property for almost 15 to 18 years, and they want to provide a new home for each of their 2 adult daughters. That's the background, the personal side of the request this evening. Obviously, they want to live close to one another, and that's a normal thing for a parent and child to want to have houses adjacent, and this is an opportunity for them to do that. As you know, there's no opposition to the request. In fact, there are 2 letters of support that are in your file. I do want to point out that the negative staff report is understandable because in my 40 years of practicing land use in San Joaquin County, I can say truthfully, I've never once have seen a staff recommended variance. That's just not something that staff considers within their purview, and that's what comes before you as a commission for you to review the particulars, review the application, analyze the findings, and make your determination, which is what we're asking you to do tonight. I would like to hand out some materials that were part of my original application. On top of the handout is a map of the neighborhood which shows the subject parcel in yellow. And as you can see, Mitchell Road is a dead end, and this is the adjacent piece of the neighborhood on the other side of the residential area built out, and this particular piece on Mitchell Road in yellow, which sets forth the neighborhood in our opinion. The second page of the handout is the acreage breakdown reflecting that of the 13 parcels. There are 13 parcels in this neighborhood, and the average parcel size is approximately 2.06 acres. The last 2 sheets of the handout are our proposed findings, which I prepared, which I think in all good faith I can submit to you and suggest that you can make these findings tonight. We respectfully submit our proposed findings and ask you to consider them in your deliberations. We believe there are no special circumstances and no special privileges and we are on a dead-end street and in a unique location where the general plan has been set forth as residential. And the findings, I believe, support our request for the variance. There are special circumstances, but there are no special privileges. I'd be happy to discuss our proposed findings if the commission wants me to go into detail, which I won't do at this point. I'll give the commission a minute to look through those, and I have some just brief closing comments. In closing, Tony Ramos, it is correct, Tony Ramos did receive a variance over 20 years ago for the home that she and Andrew raised their family in and where they still live today. I don't think a variance 20 years ago should prejudice the application today. It was 20 years ago, and it was for a different parcel. This parcel is a different parcel. They did not own both parcels at the time they applied for the variance 20 years ago. I respectfully submit these matters to you, Mr. Chairman and Commission, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if there be any from the Commission.
Yeah, Mr. Hakem, you have a lot of experience doing this. Can you explain to me the difference between a major subdivision and a minor?
The different, I'm sorry, could I trouble you, Commissioner Grunsky, to repeat that? I couldn't hear it.
Can you explain the difference between a major subdivision and a minor?
I did discuss that with staff today. A major subdivision is 5 or more, and it goes to the Planning Commission. A minor subdivision is 4 or less and requires staff approval. It's my opinion, since we're asking for 4 or less this evening, it's a minor subdivision and could be processed with staff approval and should not be required to come back to the Commission. The staff report analyzes and recommends that it's a major subdivision and counts the prior variance 20 years ago with the variance tonight and says that you add them together or you count against them, and so we're asking for more than 4 because the one that was provided 20 years ago. I did some additional legal research, and after reviewing the staff report, it's my considered opinion that you don't count the variance from 20 years ago because it was a different owner. They did not own both parcels at the same time. And rather than trust my judgment on the subject, I called Mike Durkee. He's a familiar name to those that are in the land use business. Mike Durkee's been practicing land use law for longer than I have, and he's a recognized expert. He speeches, he teaches, and he conducts classes on the MAP Act. In fact, I've gone to a MAP Act class here in this county in front of this commission when Mike Durkee appeared some years ago and taught the class. I was able to reach Mike on the phone yesterday. I said, Mike, here's my facts. Do I have the right to ask the commission to not count the first variance 20 years ago? He said, absolutely, and you can quote me. Because they didn't own both parcels at the same time, they went in 20 years ago and did a variance. That's history. It's unconnected to tonight's event, and tonight's event stands alone as a new application because they have a new purchase. We don't have common ownership between the 2 parcels at the time that the first variance was requested, and therefore it doesn't count, and it's my opinion that we have 4 tonight, and I would respectfully request this commission analyze and evaluate a minor subdivision if in the event you find favor with the variance to begin with. Obviously, I don't mean to prejudge the commission's deliberation. You first have to make the determination whether you can make the findings, and if so, then whether or not a minor subdivision would apply. Now, to be fair to staff, I talked to staff before the hearing tonight, and they advised me that that was their opinion in the staff report, but they were open to taking another look at major minor in the event that it passed, so we could still continue to dialogue about it. But I want my comments on the record, and I am going to ask the commission to make the call tonight on major versus minor, again, if you find favor with the findings. So I'll submit that, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Grunsky. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions for Mr.?
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of this project like to speak? Now, is there any opposition of this project? Public hearing, bring it back. Comments from the commissioners?
Yeah, just in general, I drove out to the property. To me, it really looks like it fits with the neighborhood. It's a really nice neighborhood. It also goes along with the stuff that I've been thinking for some of the ag zoning that we were talking about in development title projects. It really fits the neighborhood a lot. It's a nice neighborhood. I see what they're trying to do. It doesn't look out of place at all to me. And I think that would be the highest and best use, is that there'd be able to be a couple homes there. It doesn't seem out of line to me at all.
I went out and looked at the property also. I feel the same way. I thought that it would fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. It's not going to stick out. It's at a dead-end street. I thought it would be a good fit.
I also agree. I didn't make a trip out there, but there's a thing called yeah. I'm such a techie. I just think it's a good fit. I do. I think so. I'm not going to belabor what's already been said, other than I am in.
I agree. I took it right out there Monday. It's a dead-end street. It's a old almond orchard that's coming out. It's pretty tough to farm with neighbors around it at this time. The Farm Bureau didn't object to it at all. Parcel size fits with the neighborhood.
I'll just copy that, what you said. The biggest opposition would have been from the Farm Bureau, so since they're not objecting, and I know someone who's from that neighborhood who spoke about it to me, and it's a dead end. It's not that they're putting something that will not go with the flow. So respectfully, I think it's something that blends with it, and it's a good addition. It's going to be an asset to that place instead of being any kind of liability. So no special treatment here, but I think it just works out perfectly. There are nice homes there. And just having some land that is going to be farming and having all the dust and the wind bringing the stuff on that side into the homes will not make any sense. That's going to be more of a nuisance. So I think we all understand where you're coming from, Mr. Hawkins. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Final question. Can council or staff comment on what Mr. Hakem was saying about the minor major question?
Familiar with the specific facts. This issue just came to me a couple of hours ago, so I have not looked through every piece of the history. So I will definitely defer to staff on every piece of the history. That said, from what I have reviewed, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Hakem. I don't believe staff is relying on the variance from 20 years ago, but in fact, I do believe that the underlying project for this variance would require major subdivision. That said, I absolutely agree with staff in regards to their conversation with Mr. Hakem, which is that now that he's bringing forward some new information and potentially an argument in regards to major versus minor, we'll absolutely look at that. Certainly, we never make a determination without taking all information in. But looking just at the previous lot splits, one of which was related to that variance, but they were divisions that Megan did walk through. That ultimately means that this is the fifth split, which is subject to the Subdivision Map Act. So that is really the threshold question, is whether this next split is subject to the Subdivision Map Act. And that certainly has some higher needs and expectations, and that's because that Map Act was specifically designed so that when we see adjacent parcels being divided, we're able to properly assess improvements and all of the aspects of the Subdivision Map Act. So I do disagree with him. That said, I think staff is committed to looking at that again, and I'm certainly committed to also looking at that and considering his arguments. That's kind of where we are at this point.
Absolutely. We do that. Yes.
We have a motion.
If I might, Chair Hamilton, we have Alex Chetley from Public Works who is phoning in, and he is raising his hand on the Teams program, and I've confirmed that he would like to speak, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello, hello, Commission. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just a few comments on the question between a major and a minor subdivision. So as Mr. Hakem explained, a minor subdivision is a subdivision of land that creates 4 or fewer parcels, and a major subdivision is 5 or more. And typically, a major subdivision, which can go up to hundreds of lots, includes a higher level of review. And in terms of the final map, so a minor subdivision is completed with what is called a parcel map, and a major subdivision is completed with what's called a final map. The parcel map is approved by the county surveyor, and a major subdivision with a final map goes all the way to the Board of Supervisors. And there is a term that is common in subdivision mapping called 4x4 or 4x4ing. And what that means is, let's say you have 40 acres of land, and you understand that a parcel map is a much simpler process with a different level of environmental review, perhaps. And so you create 4 lots using a minor subdivision application and a parcel map. And then you come back after that's done and you create another, you further subdivide into another 4 lots. And you further subdivide into another 4 lots, thereby avoiding the major subdivision application by just, subdividing your land with small 4-lot subdivisions at a time. I'm not suggesting that's what they're doing here. It's just it's an interesting and kind of it gets the attention of the State Division of Real Estate when they think someone is doing 4x4s. Then the Division of Real Estate may step in and I don't know if they adjudicate it, but they may step in and take a look at that. Again, the main point I want to make is the difference between a major and a minor subdivision is 4 or less for minor, 5 or more for a major, and a major subdivision is completed with a final map that it must be approved by the Board of Supervisors.
Of course, just to add to Mr. Chesley, to Alex's comments, is that the final map has specific requirements for improvements and looks at a higher number of components of things. So that's kind of the difference also, just to add that in. And essentially when the Department of Real Estate or one of these actions is challenged or reviewed or analyzed, case law on this question of whether something is is 4 or in fact is 5 or more, the case law says the plan will be construed and looked at by the court as a whole. And so the case law really does look at it over time. That is not to say that is what is happening here, or in fact that if we look back in time to the 20-year variance that it does or does not weigh in, again, we're committed to looking at that. But the case law does look at the plan over time and all of the subdivisions of the lots over time in order to make the determination of whether this particular action at issue is subject to the Subdivision Map Act. So there's kind of a lot to it. And I think now that it's been raised, we want to look at it and make sure that we've gotten it right.
Jennifer, I had a question for you. What's the difference in the time restraints and financial cost between them?
So there is a little bit of a difference in the application fee, but it's not super significant. Timing-wise, the environmental review will likely be identical. You're just going to be looking at taking something to the Planning Commission versus being done at staff level. However, we always do our best to expedite a project, especially if it's a relatively simplified project. This isn't a very complicated project. We just want to make sure that we are consistent with what the MAP Act requires. So I will put that on the record. We would definitely be willing to look at Mr. Hakem's comments and have county council as well as the county surveyor weigh in on what application we should go with.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
Yes. When a motion is made, do we add in the lingo? Is it within our scope to switch from major to minor, or is that done at staff?
So that's not within the purview of the Planning Commission, but that said, that's a great opening for me to remind you that when you do take an action on a variance, you do need to make the specific findings. So in this case, the 3 findings that were discussed by staff. And then you may choose to use Mr. Hakeem's variance findings. If you do that, please be clear in your motion that that's what you're doing. That way there's a clear record of what it is that the findings that you're making in support of your action. Thank you.
We have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve. For all the excitement, I lost the front page here. Make a motion to approve variance number PA 2100006. Give me a second while I find the variance. I'm going to use Mr. Hakeem's notes. Does that work?
I believe the easiest way may be to identify them as Exhibit A variance findings provided by Mr. Hakeem, representative of the applicant.
Exhibit A variance findings, special circumstances. The property is on a dead-end road and is in a unique location and is in an area that is inconsistent with the zoning AU20. Current general plan designation, RL, residential low density. Specifically, out of the 13 total parcels in the adjacent vicinity, there are no parcels that are larger than 3 acres. 7 parcels are around 2+ acres, and 4 parcels are 1 acre each. As far as no special privileges, due to its unique location and surroundings, the property would enjoy no more than the privileges already enjoyed by the properties adjacent to and in the vicinity of the property. Only 2 of the 13 parcels are larger than 2+ acres, and 4 of the 13 parcels are 1 acre. The granting of the variance will not constitute a grant of special privilege, as the use is consistent with the majority of the other existing uses in the immediate area. As far as use authorized, the variance application is for lot size only and would not authorize a use or activity which is not otherwise expressly authorized by the regulations governing this parcel of property.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rustaller,
Yes.
Commissioner Grunsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sangha,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. The appeal period for this agenda item expires on May 31st, 2021 at 5 p.m., and the fee is $640. Thank you, Megan.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So where we've been going back and forth, so were we supposed to make another motion on this? So this is something that just goes on a major or a minor? Or were we just saying what Mr. Hakeem put on the record is up for staff to work on?
So staff will now determine the underlying application, whether it's appropriate for a major or minor. That's not something that's generally within the discretion of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Move on to item number 2, use permit number PA 1800-206 of Alice L. Kidd Trust. Applicant come forward.
Thank you, Chair.
Excuse me, hold on. I'm sorry. Not the staff.
We have Frank Girardi, who is an associate planner, and he will be presenting the PowerPoint this evening. That gets pulled up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This project is a use permit application to establish a commercial stable for up to 90 horses on a 30.41 acre parcel. The project site is located on the south side of West Lucas Road, 1,800 feet east of Davis Road, northeast of Lodi. The project site has a general plan designation of general agriculture and open space, and a zoning designation of AG40, which is general agriculture 40 acre minimum. The project site is currently developed with horse stable structures and existing residents with accessory structures. The remainder of the parcel is used for pasture. The surrounding land uses are primarily agriculture with scattered residences. And the Woodbridge Irrigation Canal is located to the south of the project site. This is a copy of the project site plan submitted by the applicant. The application is the result of enforcement case number EN-1800188, which was opened during May of 2018 for operating a commercial stable facility without a land use permit. The stable operates daily from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. with 3 employees with an average of 18 customers per day. This facility will also host equine demonstrations, horse shows, customer appreciation activities, and 4 dressage show events annually with an average of 70 participants. Activities involving overnight accommodation shall not be part of this use permit application and may be applied for separately under a special event application. The analysis portion of the staff report states that the total square footage of the existing structures to be converted for commercial purposes is 20,036 square feet. This is an error, and the actual total square footage of the existing structures is 19,896 square feet. As a result, staff recommends that condition 1B for the approved use be revised to accurately reflect the total square footage of the existing structures to be 19,896 square feet. And the applicant has proposed a surfacing modification request to have base material as the surfacing material for the parking areas instead of asphalt concrete or Portland cement as required by the development title. The applicant proposes to use Class 2 aggregate base material because it is better suited and safer for the horses, as it provides better traction than asphalt. The Community Development Department has reviewed this request, and due to the small scale of the facility, recommends Planning Commission grant this modification as proposed. The requirement has been included in the recommended conditions of approval. The Community Development Department received 1 email in support of the project and 1 email in opposition, and 4 letters expressing concerns regarding right to farm, vectors, manure management, traffic safety, trespassing, and land use compatibility. Through careful review and consideration, the Community Development Department has determined that the project as designed meets the development title requirements, and that the concerns raised by the neighbors can be mitigated through the conditions of approval, and the agricultural use is protected by the right to farm ordinance. This is a photo taken from the frontage of West Lucas Road looking south toward the driveway entrance. This is a photo from the center of the property looking at the horse barn for the stable. Okay, this photo is from the center of the property looking at the horse tack up and wash area. And this is a photo from the center of the property looking toward the pasture areas. And this photo is from the center of the property looking toward the horse shelters. And this is a photo from the center of the property looking toward the horse arena. And thank you. This concludes staff presentation.
Questions for staff? Seeing none, staff recommendation?
It is recommended that the Planning Commission adopt the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigated monitoring and reporting plan, adopt the findings for use permit, and approve the use permit number application PA 00206 with the conditions of approval contained in the staff report, with the staff recommendations to revise condition 1B, the square footage of the existing structures to be converted to a commercial stable to be 19,896 square feet.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Come forward, please, applicant. State your name and address, please.
How do you turn? Oh, it's on. Sorry.
Thank you.
Same thing.
I'm Nanette Toshrab. My husband, Simon, and we are the managers of the facility. The owner of the property is also here, Mark Kidd. I live at 706 West Lucas Road.
Want to tell us a little bit about your facility?
Well, we've been there now for 38 years. We've developed the property in conjunction with Mark's father, who started the place. It was originally just for racehorses, and then we grew into having people board their horses there and having horse shows there. And it's become basically a jewel of the neighborhood. Everybody loves it. Our very first boarder is still there after 33 years. We have a great safety record with the fire department there at Woodbridge. We've actually had the fire chief come out and tell us how wide he needs the roads and what he needs done and everything, and we are more than willing to do everything he's requested, but he said we have a very good place. We have ample space for turnaround for the fire trucks and ambulances if necessary.
You must be doing a pretty good job with manure management, because there's neighbors calling in or writing in that they have fly issues with you.
No, we keep our flies way down. We have a manure pile that's managed. We do spread the manure generally on a weekly basis, but we also have a private spreader that comes and takes our manure and then spreads it out on the surrounding grapevines, vineyards, orchards, and such for whoever would like it.
Mine, once it leaves your property, it's not yours.
Pardon?
But once the manure leaves your property, it doesn't
Oh, yeah,
belong.
it's not ours.
I drove out to the site. It seems like you guys do a really nice operation.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak in support? None. Seeing none. Opposition? None. We'll close the public hearing, bring it back to commission for comments and or a recommendation. Motion.
Yeah, just great to see.
Oh, I forgot, we're still, have somebody online?
We have one person online.
Okay.
This is the time if you wish to speak on the project, you may speak now. They're saying they're not requesting to participate.
All right, bring it back to the commission. Comments or recommendations or?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept use permit number A18006, recommendations submitted by staff. I do not need to read those out, do I?
Staff.
It's verbally amended by staff. Thanks
Thank
for that.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a second? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Senga,
Yes.
Commissioner Grunsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Midgley, Commissioner Roostaller,
Yes?
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes. Motion passes 5-0. The appeal period for this agenda item also expires on May 31st, 2021 at 5 p.m., and the appeal fee is $648. Thank you, Frank. Moving on to other business. Planning Commission comments.
Yeah, great to have you back. Just think about it. You take that time off, it's harder for me.
Director's report, future hearings.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. David Kwong, your director. So I want to report out a couple of things here. The Board of Supervisors this past Tuesday did hear the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the Chicken Ranch Animal Processing Facility, and the board did deny the appeal and upheld the Planning Commission's action of approval. Then I want to go into the next two meetings for the Planning Commission. June 3rd, we have two items scheduled. We are bringing back to your second truck parking study session. We've gotten a lot of outreach and input, a lot of calls, letters, emails to Jennifer, and we've made some modifications. That study's online already in regard to addressing a lot of those comments. And I expect we will have a lot of participation actually at the Planning Commission on the 3rd. Then we're also bringing back to you an update on the Days Inn property in response to the original revocation hearing that the Planning Commission held, I think it was roughly 5-6 months ago. So this is consistent with the schedule in regard to reporting back to you on the progress of Days Inn. Then on June 17th, we have two projects as well. One is a rezone, basically for animal raising, and consistent with a large outreach effort that we had out in the Marfago community, and we're still touching bases with those folks as we bring that item to the commission. And then we also had a site approval for a dog breeding facility on that same date. And then with that, what I'd like to do is currently we have no items scheduled for July 1st, which is the Thursday before the July 4th holiday. And sometimes we still may have some items to be scheduled, but at this point, just want to kind of get your feedback in regard to, if it looks like we don't have more than one item, we'll probably want to cancel that meeting and give you guys and everybody else an extended holiday, and obviously so we can bundle items together, at least two items in a meeting. So with that, Chair and Commission, just kind of getting your input on whether it's something we should have or cancel, or yeah.
Yeah, I may not be here.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any
That's
other
it.
questions or items? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.